Hello. Well, spring is here, Passover is about to begin, and this week's Torah portion is a special one for Pessah. It's always a special time for me because I was born and raised in Egypt during just about the worst period to be a Jew in Egypt. I saw my community shrink 99% from 100,000 when I was born in 1949 to less than 1,000 when I left in late 1967. But today, I don't want to dwell on the bad times. I just want to tell you a little bit about our Pesach customs. In Egypt, as everywhere else, Pesach was always a happy time. But still, you can imagine the incongruity of sitting at the Seder table year after year in Cairo, Egypt, to celebrate how God took us out of the land of Egypt, the land of slavery, with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, with signs and wonders, when the reality was that we were still in Egypt, still the subjects of a malevolent foreign ruler, and our situation was getting from bad to worse from one year to the next. As is the custom with Jews everywhere, the Pesach season would begin right after Purim with vigorous spring cleaning. Let me rattle off a series of recollections in no particular order. Traditionally, the firstborn male children fast before the Seder. In Egypt, some families made the firstborn girls fast as well. We had to get rid of the hametz by 9 a.m. the day of the first Seder. My mother gathered it all in the middle of the dining room table and gave it to the maids. Pesach foods were special ordered weeks ahead of the holiday from kosher providers. No Pesach display at the corner grocery store. Our matzah was round, 1 foot or more in diameter, and much thinner than the Ashkenazic box type. It was shmura matzah. A favorite staple was the special round Pesach cookies, about 4 inches in diameter. They were yellow and soft, and their taste was heavenly. Ta'am hamad. Another was hard Greek cheese. An annual Pesach treat was dry roasted salted nuts, such as almonds, pistachios, and walnuts. They were too expensive to have the rest of the year. My favorites were hazelnuts. I was good at discovering their special hiding places, which was different every year, and stealing a few every day ahead of the holiday. One year I overdid it, and there were only a handful left when Pesach came. Boy, was my mother mad at me. We did not cook with matzah meal. Instead, we used matzah and eggs. Matzah, whole or crumbled, was dipped in water and mixed with eggs or meat in casseroles. A Sephardic favorite my mother made was the mina or mayina. It consisted of layers of matzah, spinach, and ground beef cooked with hard-boiled eggs thrown in. The eggs were cooked at low temperature for a very long time. In Ladino, they are called huevos haminados, or brown's eggs. Our haroset was based on dates, not apples. You use what's plentiful in your country. In the Middle East, it's dates. The dates are soaked in water, boiled, crushed, and pureed, then sprinkled with crushed dry nuts. The result looked exactly like mortar, as it was supposed to. Our maror was romaine lettuce, sometimes celery stalks. Boy, was I surprised when I ate horseradish for the first time in this country. Quite a different taste from romaine lettuce. Sephardic Jews, like all other Jews, prohibit the use of the 5 basic hametz grains on Pesach. These are barley, rye, oats, wheat, and spelt. However, unlike Ashkenazic Jews, they permit the use of other grains or kitniyot, such as chickpeas, corn, beans, peas, lentils, and most importantly, rice. An important part of our shulchan orech, our set table, was grape leaves stuffed with rice, meat, and spices. I hear that a lot of Ashkenazic Jews convert to Sephardic Judaism for the duration of the holiday. Our Haggadah was a local edition in French and Hebrew, and we used both languages during the Seder. Sephardim recite the 4 questions in a different order from Ashkenazim. Why do we dip twice? Why only matzah? Why only maror? Why do we eat only reclining? I could not find a source explaining the reason for the difference. Now let's talk about the 10 plagues. There was no dipping of fingers in wine. We were much too refined for that. My mother would walk up to my father with a large bowl and a glass of water. My father would recite the plagues one by one, and for each plague he would pour a bit of wine in the bowl from a special large wine glass, and my mother would pour a little bit of the water. It was all done under the table. Nobody was supposed to look at the plagues for fear of being contaminated. Then my mother, without looking directly at the bowl, and with the rest of us looking in another direction, would go to the bathroom and flush the plagues down the toilets. I remember fear traveling down my spine. The wine was said to represent justice and the water mercy. Justice tempered with mercy is how God operates in the Jewish tradition. The Jews of Egypt also had a peculiar local custom. Each participant would sling the napkin containing the matzah over their right shoulder. Then the leader of the Seder would ask them, "Where are you from?" They would answer, "Mitzrayim, Egypt." The leader would then ask again, "And where are you going?" They would then sling the napkin of matzah over their left shoulder and answer, "Yerushalayim, Jerusalem." It gets better. In some families, the leader would take the Seder tray and go around chanting and lightly banging the tray over each of the participants' heads. Some say this is to place each person under the protection symbolized by the Seder plate. Each person was passed over, as it were. Before the meal, unmarried young women would hide behind the door to eat a hard-boiled egg. It was a symbol of fertility, suggesting that marriage was in the not-too-distant future. Finally, we did not hide the afikoman matzah or have a cup of Elijah, although our Seders were every bit as long as the next Jew's Seder. When I got my exit visa in October 1967, my official permission to leave Egypt, the Egyptians added by hand in red ink the letter Y in Arabic between quotation marks on both sides of the exit visa stamp. It stood for Yehudi, Jew. It was a signal to those who would later check this visa to harass me as much as possible, which they did. Here's the visa right here, and you can see the Y on both sides where my fingers are. That means Jew. Years later, when I started having children, I stuck this exit visa in our family Passover Haggadah, next to the traditional words, "Bechol dor vador, hayav adam lirot et atzmo, ke'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim." In every generation, every Jew must consider that he himself was personally rescued from Egypt. That's always been easy for me to say. Let me conclude with the words of the Haggadah, summarizing Jewish history and still applicable today. "V'hi she'amda lavotenu velanu, shelo echad bilvad amad alenu lechalotenu, ella shebechol dor vador omdim alenu lechalotenu, v'hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam." The promise made to our forefathers holds also for us. For not just one enemy has risen against us to destroy us, but in every generation they rise against us to destroy us. And the Holy One, blessed be He, saves us from their hands. Shabbat Shalom and Hag Pesach Sameach v'Kasher to all.